Hey heroes, welcome to another amazing episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This week's topic was decided by Patreon supporters. If you would like to vote in monthly polls that help decide what topics get covered on the channel, then you can sign up for $1 per month over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below, along with other places you can find me. This week's story begins with a young red-headed girl named Angelica Jones. After her mother passed away, she was raised by her father and grandmother, or Nana as Angelica called her. Nana was always supportive and did her best to make Angelica feel confident. While reading her palm, she pointed out an M shape and told her that it meant she was a very special person with exceptional talent. Meanwhile, Angelica's father, Bartholomew, was more of a realist and didn't really support that kind of thing, but he had a job that forced the family to move regularly. As a result, Angelica changed schools multiple times, making it difficult to forge lasting friendships. On top of that, it was a challenge to keep up with her studies through changing curriculums. This all continued until she was 13 years old when she attended West Morris High School in New Jersey. A lonely Angelica was noticed by one of the more popular boys, a football-playing jock named Chuck Benson. However, his attention caused a jealous bully named Cassie Sandusky to pick on her even harder. And after that, strange things started to happen when Angelica was under stress. In the first such instance, a carton of chocolate milk burst open while she was holding it. Several weeks after that, in the middle of December, Chuck convinced Angelica to participate in an ice sculpting competition. At his suggestion, she decided to make an angel, which would also become a nickname of hers, and Nana was overjoyed to see her granddaughter so happy. But the following morning, Angelica arrived at school to find that Cassie and her friends had smashed her sculpture. Furthermore, when they asked why she was always staring at her palm, she declared that the M on her hand meant that she was special. However, the bullies simply pointed out that they all had similar marks, and so there was nothing unique about it. Left alone and frustrated, Angelica lashed out and melted all of the ice sculptures around her. Frightened and confused, she went to call her grandmother, but when she grabbed a payphone, it also melted in her hand. She decided to just walk home from school, but when she arrived, she learned that her Nana had passed away that same day. After the funeral, with nowhere else to turn, she confided in her father, showing him her developing powers. Bart Jones was afraid and unsure of what to do, but then the family was visited by someone who offered to help. A woman by the name of Emma Frost, who said that she could help Angelica reach her full potential. But unbeknownst to the Jones, she was secretly the White Queen of the sinister Hellfire Club. Angelica subsequently enrolled in Frost's private boarding school, the Massachusetts Academy. There she learned that she was a mutant with the ability to absorb and channel microwave radiation. She learned to push this energy from her body to fire beams of heat, and could even generate enough thrust to fly. Seeing her considerable potential, Frost personally tutored Angelica in the use of these powers. However, she also began mentally manipulating her in an attempt to mold her into a cold-hearted assassin. With a hallucinator device hidden in her bracelet, Angelica was periodically subjected to distressing visions of Emma's rivals, Charles Xavier, and the X-Men. She did attend regular classes, but generally stayed away from the other students. This was primarily because Frost convinced her that her powers made it too dangerous to get close to anybody. Even when the other mutant students, the Hellions, attempted to befriend her, Angelica pushed them away. The only people she considered her friends were her personal bodyguard, Randall Chase, and Emma Frost herself. Although she did have a horse named Butterrum who she loved to take out riding. Then, when Angelica was 14, Frost allowed her to attend a dance at the academy. She also extended invitations to Xavier's young students, the New Mutants. And so Angelica Jones shared an awkward dance with Sam Guthrie, aka Cannonball. Neither were very good at it, however, and the two young teenagers decided to walk outside. They spoke for a bit and were drawn together, leading to Angelica's first kiss. But the moment was soon interrupted by Emma Frost, who telepathically chastised her student for selfishly risking the boy's life. Distressed and heartbroken, Angelica rushed off to the horse stable to be alone. However, there wasn't much time for reflection as the structure quickly caught fire, and the whinny of a frightened horse could be heard. She did her best to get Butterrum outside to safety, but it seemed like it was too late. Her beloved steed fell over, and Angelica blamed herself for his death. Emma arrived to comfort her, and Angelica swore to follow her without question so that nothing like that would ever happen again. Little did she realize that Frost was the one who both started the fire and telepathically stopped the horse's heart for this very reason. Continuing her training, Angelica Jones was given the code name Firestar and a bright yellow and red costume. At one point, she was also manipulated by her classmate Empath, who used his powers to make her believe she was in love with him. He tricked her into participating in an attack on the X-Men that Frost did not authorize. Ultimately, that battle ended without anyone being seriously injured. Sensing goodness in her heart, Xavier extended an invitation for Firestar to stay with the X-Men. However, she was still fiercely loyal to Emma Frost and returned to the Academy. Sometime later, she was allowed to visit her father in New Jersey with her bodyguard Randall. However, Bart Jones was conflicted between his love for his daughter and his prejudice towards mutants. When Angelica tried to cuddle with their old cat, Pumpkin, her father snatched the animal out of her hands, fearing she might accidentally hurt it. And so she decided to return to the academy early, and her father brought her to the airport the next day. There, a man bumped into her, and the boombox he was carrying burst into flame. Angelica's father tried to defuse the situation, but the man attacked him instead. The whole scene erupted into a riot when the man declared that Angelica was a mutant. She used her powers to defend herself, but didn't want to hurt anyone. She even displayed the ability to melt bullets in mid-air when the man who started the whole thing opened fire on her. However, when he turned his gun towards her father, she fired a heat blast on the attacker, leaving him in critical condition. Of course, it turns out that he was an agent of Emma Frost who had orchestrated the whole scenario. Frost was also conspiring with Sebastian Shaw, the Black King, to use Firestar to assassinate their rival in the Hellfire Club, Selene Gallio, the Black Queen. In the meantime, Randall Chase's comrade in the Hellfire Club, Bruno Stein, mockingly accused Randall of having an inappropriate relationship with his underage charge. In truth, Randall regarded her more like a kid sister and actually started to grow more genuinely protective of her. Things began coming to a head when Angelica was 16 and Emma Frost engineered a phony assassination attempt on herself, which she then blamed on Selene. Learning that Frost was planning on pitting Firestar against the Black Queen, Randall started worrying about Angelica's safety. Frost then had him abducted, telling Firestar that Selene was responsible for that as well. And so when Frost was set to attend a formal gala in Manhattan alongside the Black Queen, Angelica swore not to let anything happen to her beloved teacher. The night of the ball, Angelica called her father, and the two had a bit of a reconciliation since neither had actually stopped loving the other. At the same time, Randall Chase broke his bonds and made his way back to the school. He was fatally wounded while escaping, but was still able to make his way back to Angelica. He died in her arms shortly thereafter, but not before revealing the truth behind the White Queen's manipulations. Angelica then removed the bracelet that Frost had given her and went to confront her as Firestar. In the ensuing fight, Firestar was able to bring her hand to the White Queen's face. However, she ultimately left her unharmed, simply proving that she could have destroyed her if she chose. In the end, Emma Frost had truly and utterly failed in her attempts to mold Angelica into a cold-blooded killer. Mind you, there would still be retribution for her actions as Firestar unleashed the full force of her powers to completely destroy Frost's underground training facility. After that, she went back to her father Bart and the two agreed to face future hardships together. She returned to West Morris High School and found that Jupiter Wise, a friend she'd made at one of her previous schools, had transferred there as well. Since her mutant powers hadn't become public knowledge, she kept them a secret at her father's insistence. Much to his dismay, she did employ them at least once to rescue a friend from a pair of attackers. Meanwhile, Emma Frost wanted to strike back at her wayward student but was unable to do so personally, and so she anonymously reported Firestar's existence to Freedom Force, a government-sponsored mutant team led by the shapeshifter Mystique. Mystique intended on recruiting Firestar herself, but then Bart Jones was injured by the Freedom Force member Spiral. After that, a group known as the Arms of Salvation offered to provide Jones with a donor lung if Firestar captured Mystique for them. Angelica accomplished this, but then learned that the Arms were abducting people and selling organs on the black market. And so Firestar fought alongside Mystique to defeat the nefarious organization. In the end, Bart recovered and Mystique falsely reported that Firestar had been killed, allowing Angelica to return to her life. Meanwhile, the wealthy vigilante Night Thrasher was putting together a team of heroes to aid in his war on crime. Now, he found superhumans to recruit by hacking into various computer databases. By doing so to the Massachusetts Academy, he was able to learn Firestar's real name and address. And so not long after that, Angelica received a call telling her to come to the penthouse of the Ambrose building, or else her secret would be leaked to the world. Naturally, she was unhappy with this kind of threat and rushed off in costume to confront the ones responsible. There, she met Night Thrasher, Nova, and Marvel Boy, later known as Justice. At the same time, the alien earthbender known as Terrax the Tamer was revived and launched an attack on Earth. And so while she was annoyed by Night Thrasher's methods, Angelica joined the heroes in the battle with Terrax. Aided by two others, Namorita and Speedball, the assembled heroes were dubbed the New Warriors. Night Thrasher had the team he was looking for, and Firestar reluctantly stayed with the group. Despite this initial hesitance, Angelica found herself fitting in with her new teammates. She got along particularly well with Marvel Boy, a mutant with telekinetic powers. During a mission where it seemed like they might not make it out alive, he revealed his secret identity of Vance Astrovik to her. After that, Emma Frost discovered Night Thrasher's intrusion into her computer systems, leading to a battle between the Hellions and the New Warriors. The White Queen's forces were ultimately defeated, and Firestar declared that she would not have rejoined Frost regardless of the outcome. As a member of the New Warriors, Angelica approached adulthood and started dating Vance. However, their relationship was put on hold after Vance lashed out at his abusive father in self-defense. Since his father passed away from his injuries, Vance was put on trial for murder. As a result, Firestar agreed to testify, but was forced to admit that he could have likely stopped his father from hitting him without using deadly force if he'd tried. Furthermore, while Angelica hadn't told her father that she'd become Firestar again, news coverage of the trial confirmed his suspicions. But Bart Jones proved himself a better father than Arnold Astrovik, offering love and support to his daughter and her boyfriend. In the end, Vance was found guilty of negligent homicide and sent to the super prison known as the Vault. Firestar, Nova, and Namorita intended on freeing him while he was being transported, but Vance decided to carry out his sentence. Angelica wanted to be intimate with him before he left, offering her virginity, but he insisted that their first time together would be special and that they could wait until after they were married. As she continued to mature, Firestar became one of the more powerful members of the New Warriors. At one point, she joined Cannonball and the former Hellion Warpath, both of which were members of X-Force during this time, on a mission to the hidden city of Nova Roma. There, Firestar clashed with her former classmate Empath and freed the local people from his mental manipulations. Putting her troubling past behind her, she discarded the costume that she received from the White Queen and donned a new one that Namorita put together for her. She was subsequently one of several heroes to join Spider-Man in opposing the psychopathic Carnage and his surrogate family during the events of Maximum Carnage. When the New Warriors feuded with a street gang called the Poison Memories, Angelica's father was shot and nearly killed. Fortunately, she was able to get him to a hospital in time to save his life, and he remained supportive of her superhero career. It was during this incident that her best friend, Jupiter Wise, learned of Angelica's double life and became a trusted confidant. Angelica's morals and patience would later be tested again when Jupiter was sexually assaulted at a party. Firestar confronted the man who did it and was sorely tempted to burn him in such a way that he would never be able to do that again. In the end, she threatened him and blasted to the ground next to him, but stopped short of doing any permanent damage. However, she knew that Jupiter would have to live with what happened for the rest of her life and felt powerless because of it. In the meantime, Vance Astrovik was released on early parole and created a new costumed identity, Justice. He and Firestar resumed their relationship, but it would not be without challenges. Some tension arose when there was a mutual attraction between Justice and the Israeli mutant known as Sabra. Similarly, Spider-Man's clone, the Scarlet Spider, found himself attracted to Firestar, in part due to a passing resemblance to Mary Jane Watson. But despite this potential for other dalliances, Firestar and Justice remained loyal to one another. During this time, Jupiter Wise worked as a cashier in a mall food court. When the man who assaulted her was a customer there, Angelica, still angry, took some petty revenge by microwaving his burger while he was eating it. However, Jupiter pointed out that she was worried about what long-term effects Angelica's powers could be having on other people. That caused Angelica to wonder what side effects her microwaves might have on herself and had herself tested for signs of sterility. She confided in Vance, telling him that if they wanted to have children someday, they might need to start sooner than they'd previously thought. But as the team started drifting apart, Angelica re-examined her priorities and came to the conclusion that she would be happy to opt for adoption. She decided that what she really wanted was to be with Vance and asked him to marry her. The couple began a lengthy engagement period, but Justice later pulled her back into the world of superheroics when he took an opportunity for them to join the Avengers. Angelica was initially reluctant, especially when it came to using her powers at higher levels. She experienced further frustration when the Wasp provided her with a new costume that was more revealing than she was comfortable with. At Vance's suggestion, she kept the costume but modified it to cover her chest. On the plus side, her time with the Avengers did allow her to be examined by the noted super scientist Hank Pym. Since most mutants are naturally immune to the negative effects of their own powers, Pym determined that Angelica was underdeveloped in that regard. To counteract this, he provided her with a biocircuitry suit to wear under her costume that would siphon off excess microwave radiation and use it to jumpstart her natural immunity supposedly within 6 months. After that, Firestar served as an Avenger much more enthusiastically, even while Justice grew more uneasy and self-conscious. He eventually found his footing as well, but then they decided to take a leave of absence to focus on their relationship. Although shortly after that, Iron Man asked them to infiltrate a suspicious church called the Triune Understanding. I talked all about that in my video on the 3D Man, so refer to that episode for the details on how that turned out. But after all that, Angelica returned to her studies and attended college with Jupiter. At this point, Vance was 22, but Angelica was still only 19. And so while he wanted to move on to the next phase of their life together, she grew more hesitant as the date approached. Eventually it became clear that Angelica wasn't as ready for marriage as she once thought. In two different places on this matter and unable to reconcile, the two ultimately decided to go their separate ways and break up. After that, during the time of the controversial Superhuman Registration Act, Angelica retired her superhero identity rather than surrender to the government. She focused on completing her education and studied Byzantine and medieval art in graduate school. She also tried attending a speed dating event, and that's where she met Patsy Walker, Monica Rambeau, and Felicia Hardy. The women became fast friends and were there for Angelica when she received devastating news. It seems that she still lacked a natural immunity to her own powers, and was diagnosed with breast cancer as a result. She admitted to her friends that she stopped using Pym's biocircuitry suit 6 months after he gave it to her, and neglected to follow up with him for another examination, even though she felt like she should. The women continued to provide her with friendship and support while she underwent chemotherapy. Fortunately, her cancer ultimately went into remission, and Angelica eventually made a full recovery. Hank Pym also provided her with a new suit that would allow her to safely continue using her powers. While she was still recovering, she moved back in with her father in New Jersey. There she learned that her father had started dating a woman named Janet Sandusky. However, Janet's daughter was Angelica's old bully, Cassie, and while Angelica tried to bury the hatchet, Cassie was still hostile towards her. You see, Cassie was going through a very difficult divorce and started drinking heavily. The situation came to a head when Cassie attempted to drive home while very drunk, but was stopped by Firestar before she could hurt herself or anyone else. After that, Cassie confided in Angelica, revealing that her ex-husband was trying to take everything in the divorce, including their house. She admitted that she'd likely gotten married before she was really ready, and Angelica told her that she'd almost done the same thing. Then Cassie noticed that Angelica had been wearing a wig, and so Angelica told her about her battle with breast cancer. After all of that, Angelica questioned herself and her future, but her friends and loved ones continued to offer support. Her father assured her that he was proud of her, and that her mother and Nana would be too. After the Registration Act was repealed, Firestar returned and fought alongside a group of heroes known as the Young Allies. She befriended her new teammate Gravity, and while he developed a crush on her, Angelica wasn't ready to pursue another relationship. Meanwhile, since their last encounter, Emma Frost had reformed and joined the X-Men. She extended an invitation to Firestar to join others of her kind on their island sanctuary, Utopia, but Angelica declined. In addition to her lack of trust for Emma, Firestar was a person who didn't want to be solely defined by her mutantdom or any other singular label. While Angelica could not truly forgive Frost, the two parted ways on relatively amicable terms, having come to an understanding. She also had an awkward reunion with Vance when their separate friend groups coincidentally went to the same bar. Things got even stranger when they encountered their own past selves, thanks to Loki, the god of mischief. That was part of a scheme to keep the Avengers occupied by pitting them against their own future selves. However, the two Firestars and Justices were ultimately able to work together to defeat him. That experience left Angelica and Vance realizing that they still had a lot of unresolved baggage, but it would have to wait for another day. They soon met again when Firestar was invited to prom night at Avengers Academy, a school for young heroes where Justice was teaching. There, she met Vance's new girlfriend, Ultra Girl, who offhandedly mentioned that they were sleeping together, which was upsetting for Angelica because Vance had always told her that he wanted to wait until they were married. Angelica and Vance then spoke in private, and he admitted that his first time with Ultra Girl happened during a period when it felt like they could be killed at any time. However, when he and Angelica were together, he was able to wait because he was convinced that they would have a future together until suddenly they didn't. The two made peace, and Angelica apologized for overreacting, confessing that she just didn't want them to hurt each other anymore. After that, Angelica briefly held a teaching position herself at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. She also joined other faculty members on missions, officially making her one of the X-Men. She had a crush on her teammate Iceman during this time, but nothing ultimately came of that. At the end of the day, Firestar has been a new warrior, an Avenger, a young ally, and now an X-Man. She survived all manner of hardship and adversity, but without letting it corrupt her. That, my amazing friends, is the story of the mutant hero known as Firestar. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it on your favorite social media. As always, all of the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, and I do recommend a lot of these. There are also links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. There's also my Twitch channel where I'm currently playing Final Fantasy I and Yakuza 0 for the very first time. But that's all I've got for you guys this week, so until next time, true believers, Excelsior!